We were halfway through dinner when Jake said it. Not with anger. Not even with defiance. Just that flat, teenage indifference sharpened into cruelty. "We only listen to you when we need something." He said it like he was reading from a script. A line he'd rehearsed upstairs. A truth he couldn't wait to finally get off his chest. Then came the second blow. "We only pretend to care," he added, without even blinking. "You're just a resource." Ashley didn't look up. She nodded once, slow and silent, like she was ticking a box, like some part of her had wanted this out in the open for years. And Bree, my wife, their mother, barely reacted. Her eyes stayed fixed on her phone screen, glowing reflection in her glasses. She was reading something, laughing at something. She didn't even look up. No one else said a word. The clink of forks on porcelain. The hum of the fridge. My own breath, slow and hollow in my throat. And that sentence. That sentence sat between us like a crack forming down the middle of the table. I stared at my plate, steak, mashed potatoes, salad, cooked to each of their preferences. Ashley didn't like garlic in the mash. Jake hated when his steak was too pink. Bree only ate when the table was set and the napkins folded. I had done all of it without being asked, without resentment. But this time, the taste of the food turned to ash in my mouth. I didn't answer, didn't defend myself. I simply stood up, gathered my plate, scraped it into the sink, and washed it with a calmness I didn't feel. No one stopped me. No one asked where I was going. I went to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed I paid for, and stared at the floor. It wasn't that Jake had said something new. It was that he'd finally said it out loud. For years, I had been trying to earn something unspoken. A nod, a glance, a thank you tossed over a shoulder. Anything that acknowledged I was part of the structure of their lives. Instead, I got this confirmation. I was a utility, a background process, a donor on legs. I didn't sleep that night, while Bree lay beside me, breathing soft and even as if nothing had broken. I stared at the ceiling fan slicing slow circles above our heads. That fan? I had installed it when the summer heat was unbearable. Spent hours rewiring it, mounting it, patching up the drywall. They had complained it was too warm. I had fixed it, like everything else. Their school tuition? On my card. Their phones? My account. Their therapy sessions? My signature on every bill. Their car insurance? Their soccer cleats? Their tablets and clothes and Spotify Premium and Wi-Fi and orthodontist and field trips and health coverage? Me. Always me. I had built a life around the idea that, if I gave enough, if I filled every crack with effort, eventually they'd stop seeing the cracks at all. Eventually I'd be something. But Jake had named it. He had put words to the quiet rot. I wasn't someone. I was something. And only when they needed it. That same night, while they all slept, I got out of bed and sat at the kitchen table in the dark. Opened my laptop. Logged into every portal where I had linked my name to theirs. Removed the shared credit card from their Apple wallets. Canceled the automatic transfers. Locked the debit card that funded their lives. Unsubscribed from the family phone plan. I even called the school to remove my digital signature from future forms and payment obligations. I didn't do any of it loudly. I didn't slam keys. I didn't scream into the quiet. I did it methodically, cleanly, like surgery. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. What I felt was emptier than anger. A kind of bone-deep fatigue that made rage impossible. Because rage still means you care. And I had run out of caring. By 3 a.m. It was done. The infrastructure I had quietly supported for 6 years now rested fully in Bree's hands. Or, if she preferred, in Thomas's. Their real father. The man they still celebrated. The man they defended. The man whose absence they romanticized because it gave them the freedom to hate me. He lived in Chicago. Sent birthday texts usually a day late. Called on Christmas if he remembered. Showed up once to take them to Six Flags and forgot to pick them up. Ashley cried that night. Jake said nothing. And still, he was the myth. The man they claimed. The blood that somehow mattered more than the body sitting across from them every day. I looked at the quiet house. The photos on the wall. None of them had me in them. Literally. I wasn't in a single frame. Family portraits, Bree and the kids. Vacation shots, Bree and the kids. High school events, recitals, birthdays, I was always the one behind the camera. No one had ever turned it around. I looked into the empty living room. The Xbox I had bought for Jake. The throw pillows Ashley picked. The rug Bree said was too expensive, but I bought anyway. My fingerprints were everywhere, but not my face. Not my name. It was like I'd never been here at all. I turned off the laptop, sat in the dark. At sunrise, I showered, dressed, and left for work an hour early. I didn't wake Bree. I didn't say goodbye. When I returned that evening, no one asked why the lights were dimmer. No one noticed the thermostat was off. No one had figured out the card had stopped working. That would come later. First, there would be confusion, then frustration, then panic. They would call me, text me, stand in front of me with wide eyes and louder voices, and I would say nothing, not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I had nothing left to give. I met Bree 6 years ago in the checkout line at Home Depot. I was buying tile grout. She was buying paint swatches and a mop she'd never use. Her smile caught me first, sharp, apologetic, tired in a way that felt familiar. She was juggling 2 kids then. Jake was 10, Ashley was 8. Thomas had just moved to Chicago with a new girlfriend, and Bree was still telling herself it was for a job opportunity. We married within a year. I didn't rush it. I just recognized something in her loneliness that echoed my own. She didn't need rescuing. She needed consistency, stability. I gave her both. But I didn't marry Bree alone. I married her children. I knew that going in. What I didn't understand was that I was applying for a job I could never get promoted in. That I was stepping into a role defined by boundaries I didn't write. That no matter how much I gave, I would never be anything more than a substitute. Their real father was an idea. He floated above us, untouched and unburdened. He lived 1,100 miles away, sent holiday texts and links to Amazon wishlists. He visited once every few years, enough to refresh their mythology of him. He was always tan, well-dressed, loud and empty. He made promises with the kind of confidence only someone who never has to keep them can afford. But I was the one who stayed. I was the one who packed their lunches, who left work early when the school nurse called. The one who sat through science fairs and band recitals, who explained interest rates and helped build a solar system out of foam balls. I watched them grow, drove them to appointments, sat outside waiting for practices to end while their father posted gym selfies. I was the man who made sure Jake had braces, who bought Ashley her first laptop, who paid for karate classes, then cello lessons, then tutoring. Every season, a new cost, a new need, a new version of Dad, can I? But always phrased as if they were calling in a favor, not asking their father. And I said yes, every time, because I thought eventually I'd be seen. Instead, I was studied, judged, mocked in whispers behind bedroom doors that were supposed to stay shut. Jake started it. He was always good with impressions of teachers, YouTubers, me. He mimicked the way I walked when I was tired, hunching his shoulders and dragging his feet. Ashley would giggle behind her hand. I heard it once from the hallway. Bree said, "They're just being kids." But it didn't feel like a joke. Felt like training. Jake once called me a house sponsor in front of his friends. They laughed. I laughed too, to keep the blood from rushing to my face. That night, Bree rubbed my back and said, "They'll grow out of it. Just give them time." But time didn't fix it, calcified it. They got smarter about the insults, quieter, more surgical. They learned how to roll their eyes without being caught, how to address Bree when I spoke, how to take what I gave and say nothing. No thank you, no acknowledgement, not even eye contact. They learned indifference so well it became identity. I tried to talk to Bree once. Really talk. I said, "They don't respect me. They don't even see me." She didn't look up from folding towels. "They're teenagers," she said. "You're expecting too much." Was I? Was it too much to want to be more than a wallet and a ride? To be more than a name on emergency contact forms? Was it too much to want to be called Dad without a smirk? But I said nothing more. I stopped bringing it up, because every time I did, I became the problem. I became the adult who couldn't handle it, who took things personally. The man who had walked into a ready-made family and dared to want a place at the table. So I did what men do when they're trying not to break things. I worked harder. If I couldn't earn their affection, I'd earn their reliance. I paid for their phones, upgraded their data plans, replaced cracked screens without complaint. I bought new uniforms when they changed sports, paid team fees, bought gas cards, taught Jake how to change a tire. I pretended not to hear Ashley say she wished her real dad had walked her to school. Every time Bree reminded me I wasn't their father, it came wrapped in softness. I know it's hard, but they're not yours. Not really. Just let them come to you. They never did. They came to me when things broke. When they needed rides. When they needed passwords. When the Wi-Fi cut out or their insurance needed updating. They came to me in crisis and vanished in peace. And slowly, I began to understand something I'd refused to admit. This wasn't going to change. There wasn't going to be a breakthrough moment. No montage of shared laughter and teary realizations. No late-night confessions of, I see now, you've always been there. This was the reality. I was the substitute. Useful. Replaceable. Forgettable. Still, I stayed. I told myself the work meant something. That it would add up to a kind of legacy, even if I was never named in it. But people don't remember the man who steadies the ladder. They remember the one who poses at the top. And that's who Thomas was to them. The man at the top, smiling for the picture, while I held the ladder and paid for the damn camera. Even Bree, who swore she saw me, stopped correcting them, stopped stepping in, stopped noticing the way Jake dismissed me, the way Ashley called Thomas Dad and me he. She said, they're teenagers. So often it became a chant, a lullaby to put her conscience to sleep. And so I became background noise. The hum of a dishwasher, the click of a thermostat, a man-shaped solution to everything except love. Until the night Jake said it. We only listen to you when we need something. And everything got quieter. Because when you finally say out loud what someone's known all along, it doesn't feel like news. It feels like a verdict. I woke up early the next morning. Not because I had somewhere to be, but because I couldn't bear to be in that bed a second longer. Bree lay next to me, still turned to the wall. Her phone charger coiled like a leash on her nightstand. The house was silent, but not asleep. Silence like this has a shape. It stretches, it presses against your ribs, it dares you to breathe too loud. I got dressed in the dark, slipped on my work clothes, but I wasn't going to work. Not that day. I was leaving, not in fury, not in haste, but in precision. I took my passport, my documents, my savings card, the folder labeled insurance, medical, vehicle, mortgage. I had built a life on paper, and now I was withdrawing that paper like a spine from a body that never knew it was supported. I walked through the hallway with bare feet, listening to the familiar groans of a house I had made functional, the HVAC system I had replaced, the squeaky third step I never got around to fixing, the new door hinges on Jake's room after he'd slammed it one too many times. These were my fingerprints, my invisible inheritance. I didn't write a note. I didn't explain. I left the house key on the kitchen counter, next to the bowl where I used to leave gift cards for Bree's birthday, the bowl where no one ever left anything for mine. By the time the sun crept through the blinds, I was gone. I had rented a one-bedroom apartment across town, close to my job, far from anything else. No photos, no furniture beyond the essentials. The mattress on the floor, a folding table, a lamp with no shade. It looked like a room waiting to be moved into, or out of. But it had something the old house didn't. Silence that didn't accuse me. That afternoon, Bree called. Not with worry, with irritation. Where are you? I said nothing. Seriously, you just left? What are the kids supposed to think? I let her words fall into the silence I now lived in. Finally, I said, you heard Jake last night. I'm nothing to them. Now you get to be everything. She tried to laugh it off. "Don't be dramatic." He was mouthing off. "He's 17. I hung up, because I knew the difference between a tantrum and a truth. Jake hadn't lost his temper. He'd made a declaration. I spent the next 3 days setting up boundaries like sandbags before a flood. I removed myself from every joint account. I unlinked my number from every school contact. I called the car insurance and told them to remove me from the policy. Each call, each form, each deletion. It felt like pulling weeds from a garden that had never grown anything but debt and silence. I started eating alone. Breakfast from a plastic container. Lunch at the office. Dinner from the microwave. No voices. No complaints. No silent contempt curling its fingers around my throat. A week passed. Then 2. Jake tried calling once. I didn't pick up. Ashley texted. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. Then Bree again. "You can't just disappear. What about the bills? What about the kids?" I sent one message. One sentence. "They were never my kids. Remember?" Then silence. But it wasn't just about leaving. It was about watching what filled the vacuum I had once occupied. Jake's college portal locked. Ashley's phone shut off. The insurance company sent cancellation notices. The tutor texted Bree 3 times, then gave up. The bills, once silently paid, now screamed in red ink. Bree dipped into her savings. I knew she would. She always assumed I'd come around, that I'd cool off. But the cold doesn't melt. It sinks into the foundation. It becomes part of the structure. I heard from friends, mutual ones. Jake had been kicked off the soccer team for missing payments. Ashley stopped showing up to cello practice. The house had gone dark for 3 days. Utility shut off. Bree was selling furniture online. They didn't understand why it was happening. That's what stunned me most. They didn't see the link between comfort and labor, between their lives and mine. They thought the world worked on autopilot. That money appeared like mail. That Wi-Fi was a birthright. That college and electricity and Friday pizza nights were just things the world owed them. They never once asked who had been paying for it all. And now, without me, the questions began. But the answers wouldn't come from me. I was gone. Not dead. Not angry. Just gone. At first, they pretended they could manage. Bree called the electric company and asked for an extension. She pulled from her 401k. Ashley tried doing her homework by flashlight. Jake drove on a car with lapsed insurance, kept the music loud enough to drown out the check engine light. They behaved like people who thought the storm would pass if they just stayed still. They didn't realize I was the storm. The house I used to keep running down to the last invoice, the last oil change, the last school permission slip, was beginning to fall apart in layers. Not all at once, but like a roof letting in rain. Quiet at first, then ruinous. Ashley's data plan was cut. Bree missed Jake's FAFSA deadline. The school called, left a voicemail. No contact info on file. Please update your emergency list. They didn't, because they couldn't, because I was the emergency contact. Jake sent a text after the car got towed. All it said was, "Wow, really?" I stared at it. Let it sit in the notification bar until the screen went dark. That was the first time I realized something vital. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. They missed the man who picked up the slack. Not the man who sacrificed to do it. They missed the invisible scaffolding I had become. And now that it was gone, the house they'd built on my back began to creak. Bree showed up at my apartment a month later. I didn't give her the address. She must have gone through old documents, or asked someone who hadn't been paying attention to the silence. She knocked like someone who wasn't sure she deserved to. When I opened the door, she looked smaller. Hair tied back. No makeup. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her shoulders didn't rise when she inhaled. "Please," she said. Just that. I stepped aside. Let her in. The apartment didn't have much, just a table, a bed, a single chair. The walls were bare. "You live like this?" she asked softly. I nodded. "It's quiet." She sat. Didn't touch anything. Didn't cry. "They don't understand," she said finally. I said nothing. I didn't understand either. Still, I said nothing. She looked up. They thought you'd be back. That this was temporary. I turned toward the window, let the silence spool out. Then I said, because they think love is something owed, not something earned. Her eyes glassed over, but the tears didn't fall. They're kids. No, I said. They're the product of choices. Yours. His. Mine. She didn't argue, didn't try to justify. That was new. She stood to leave. But just before she reached the door, she turned. They need you. I met her eyes. No. They need what I gave, not who I am. She left without another word. 2 weeks later, Jake sent an email. Not a text. Not a call. Subject line. About school. He wrote, I didn't mean it when I said that. I was just mad. I didn't mean you're nothing. I didn't mean we never cared. Then a paragraph about college. About needing tuition help. About deadlines and possible suspension. He ended with, I hope you can forgive me. Please. I read it once, twice, then deleted it. Forgiveness is something you offer when someone understands the damage. He didn't understand. Not yet. That same week, Ashley wrote Bree's name instead of mine on her school medical forms. When they called during an incident asthma, Bree didn't pick up. Neither did Thomas. They tried me last. But I wasn't the contact anymore. They learned what emergency means when no one answers. After that, the messages became more desperate. Ashley sent 3 in a row. Please. I'm scared. Why won't you talk to us? Jake left a voicemail. His voice cracked. I get it now. I really do. Please. I'm sorry. But apologies don't unburn a house. And this one had been burning for years. I walked every night that week. Through quiet streets. No destination. Just motion. Every block reminded me of the life I used to fund. School zones. Grocery stores. Soccer fields. Street lamps I had once driven past with car seats rattling in the back. Now it was all just scenery. Just a town full of ghosts. One night I passed by the high school. The lights were on in the gym. A game maybe. Or a fundraiser. Or just janitors mopping the echoes from the floor. I stood there for 10 minutes. Long enough to remember every ride. Every sandwich packed. Every form signed. And then I walked away. No one called me dad. But I had done the work. And now they would do the reckoning. Because the thing about silence is, it teaches. And I had gone silent.